Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm Vedika Bahel, and here's the headlines from across the continent. The 45th summit of the Southern African Development Community came to a close, with 16 countries vowing to expand manufacturing and industrial capacity. Hosted for the first time by Madagascar, it also saw the island country's president take the reins as he assumed leadership of the bloc's rotating chairmanship. In Kenya, gambling is now considered a public health issue as a spike in betting culture sees more and more people drawn to games of chance in the hopes of hitting the jackpot. Our correspondent sends us his report. And a thrilling discovery for archaeologists in northeastern Ethiopia: fossilized teeth that are nearly 3 million years old. They may belong to a new branch of humanity and contradict the current linear narrative of human evolution. Thank you for joining us. We'll be starting with the 45th summit of the Southern African Development Community, which wrapped up Monday in Madagascar. It saw regional leaders urge stronger self-reliance within the bloc to cut dependence on outside partners. It's the first time Madagascar hosted the summit since joining 2 decades ago, and it also marked a major milestone for the island's president as he officially assumed the bloc's rotating chairmanship for the next year. Gaël Borgia explains the significance.
Andry Rajoelina has come a long way. 16 years ago, he was sidelined by both the African Union and SADC following international sanctions over the 2009 coup that brought him to power. He was excluded from the 2013 democratic elections, as was ousted President Marc Ravalomanana. Only then was Madagascar welcomed back into the international community. Now, by hosting this 45th SADC summit and taking the role of chairperson, Andry Rajoelina, democratically elected in 2018, is positioning himself as a credible regional statesman, a far cry from the controversial figure he once was. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa praised Andry Rajoelina's ability to build consensus, despite it being his first time chairing such a high-level regional summit.
We were impressed by your able manner in which you led the summit and helped us reach consensus, even on difficult issues on which we were not in agreement.
During the summit, the delegates discussed strengthening economic cooperation and development, and at its conclusion, they issued a strong call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and reaffirmed their steadfast commitment to advancing peace, stability and security in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo.
Tensions in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo have spiked in recent weeks after the resumption of clashes with Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. There's fears this recent violence will derail peace initiatives for the region, as Congolese government and M23 rebels missed Monday's deadline to reach a deal in Doha. International pressure, particularly from the White House, encouraged dialogue between the DRC and Rwanda, but for now, despite various initiatives, there hasn't been much change on the ground. According to our correspondent in Kinshasa, Emmett Livingston, the US remains optimistic about the peace process.
Tensions in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo have spiked in recent weeks after the resumption of clashes with M23 rebels who are backed by Rwanda. The violence has raised fears that peace initiatives for the region could be derailed. The US ambassador to Congo, Lucy Tamlin, told us that a round of American sanctions announced last week were meant to support the ongoing peace process. These sanctions targeted an armed group called Pareco FF, as well as several companies involved in the minerals trade.
We're doing this ultimately to support the peace agreement because one thing is, having the partners agree to peace on the ground, but it's really important to restart economic growth. And to restart economic growth, you need to have opportunities for responsible, legitimate companies to be there to engage in mining activities and other activities which will benefit the Congolese people and provide revenues to the Congolese state. So I think some people feel the peace process may be going too slow, but I think actually it's going very fast, especially if you consider that this is a more than 30-year conflict and the issues are very profound. There's a lot that needs to be discussed, and some of the decisions in the negotiations will be hard. But through U.S. sponsorship, we've been able to get the parties to agree first to Declaration of Principles, then to a peace agreement signed the 27th of June in Washington. Some of the hard part still has to come, but we're working closely with all of the parties to ensure that the follow-up mechanisms are put in place. And that's really where the rubber hits the road. That's where we'll be working with the parties to ensure that there's oversight of the actions that they've committed to take.
The ambassador also pointed out that US sanctions have targeted the M23 since 2013, around the time the group first emerged. Earlier this year, M23 and Rwandan forces captured the two largest cities in eastern Congo in a lightning advance. But international pressure, especially from the United States, then brought Congo and Rwanda to the negotiating table. In June, the two countries signed a peace deal that is meant to lead to Rwandan troops leaving Congo, as well as to kickstart joint economic schemes. The Congolese government is also carrying out separate negotiations with the M23. The next negotiating round is due to take place in the coming days. Still, major sticking points remain, and there is little sign that either Rwandan forces or M23 rebels will withdraw imminently. Violence is also still occurring. The UN has said that M23 killed over 300 civilians in July in Congo, with help from the Rwandan army.
And now let's take a brief look at other stories making headlines across the continent. In Nigeria, rescue efforts are underway after a boat capsized Sunday in the country's northwest that left at least 40 people missing. According to authorities, the accident took place in Sokoto State as the boat was transporting passengers to a popular food produce market. Only 10 people have been rescued so far. And there's been a leadership reshuffle in Sudan's military as the country's Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan appointed a slew of new senior officers on Monday. Comes a day after he retired several long-serving senior staff and marks the first major restructuring since the war with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces erupted in 2023. And now it's time for a sports update with the latest from the African Nations Championship. Monday saw South Africa and Uganda go head-to-head in Nairobi, and after a thrilling 3-3 draw, it was Uganda who clinched a historic place in the quarterfinals after 7 previous attempts to do so. After a goal in the 31st minute, the Cranes carried their lead into half-time, and what followed was a breathless back and forth as the Bafana fought back. Simultaneously, Algeria and Niger battled it out, though neither team was able to get to the back of the net, despite both sides' insistence. Niger had nothing to lose as they were out of the chance of qualifying for the next stage. Now, these results mean Group C is undecided, with Algeria joining Uganda in the quarterfinals due to a superior goal difference over South Africa. Now, with the African Nations Championship taking place, it's also drawing in a betting culture in Kenya. Many are rushing to place bets on their national team. But this isn't just an issue due to the current football tournament. Every year, more and more people take on gambling in all sorts of games of chance in the hopes of striking it rich. And for many, it can become a slippery addiction. In Kenya, gambling is now considered a public health issue, as our correspondent Bastien Renouy reports.
So I've bet on Crystal Palace to score 2 goals.
In this betting shop, punters can gamble at any time of the day. Roulette, football simulations, gamblers place one bet after another while waiting for the real match of the day. Kenya is facing Angola.
So we are going to take our tickets at 2 o'clock. We'll be there supporting our country. We want Kenya to go up to the finals.
According to a recent survey, more than 80% of Kenyan adults have placed a bet at least once. Almost 2/3 of those respondents say they gamble at least once a week. Each year, the total amount wagered exceeds 3 billion euros and sends many gamblers into financial ruin. Health professionals have even reported gambling-linked suicides. These two brothers, barely adults, place bets every day from their phones.
When you work hard, you have that 200, you say, let me bet with it, so I can, let me risk, so I can get profit from this 200. Me, in my own opinion, it's just an addiction. It's just addiction.
More and more people are betting, so the Kenyan president has just enacted a law regulating bookmakers and the taxes they must pay to the government. But mental health experts say that won't address addiction problems. In this rehabilitation center, gambling addicts are treated with the same attention as alcoholics and drug addicts.
Because we already know it is a public health problem of concern to the nation, one measure would be to restrict advertising and to restrict celebrity endorsement so that it has no glamour to it. We cannot glamorize a medical problem.
Advertisements for bookies are everywhere, and sports are no exception. The African Nations Championship itself is sponsored by a betting site, just like the Kenyan Professional League, which has just secured a new sponsor for the next 10 years.
And finally, after a decades-long paleoanthropology project, a new discovery could shake up our understanding of human evolution. Fossilized teeth that are almost 3 million years old were dug up in the Afar region of Ethiopia, and they indicate that a new species of early human existed. And scientists say it could shed light on a little-known period. Clemence Waller dug deep to bring us this story.
They may seem like just a few small teeth, but these fossils open up a whole new chapter in the story of our evolution. Dated between 2.6 and 2.8 million years, scientists concluded that these 10 teeth, discovered in Ethiopia's Afar region, belonged to a new species of early human, shedding light on a poorly understood period in humanity's history.
What makes it special and new is the exciting discovery that there is more diversity in the human lineage, in our origin, in our ancestry than we originally thought at this particular time. The biggest excitement is around the fact that there's more than just one or two or possibly even 3 species of Australopithecus here in Eastern Africa.
The close age of the teeth suggests that this newly identified Australopithecus species coexisted in this region with early Homo species, raising questions about whether they competed for the same resources. They are determined to belong to 2 individuals. However, the team which discovered them say more fossils are needed to determine which specific species they belong to.
But we want to be a little bit cautious about naming it until we have a better picture of all of the morphology. Of how its whole body looked, not just 5 teeth or 10 teeth in its mouth, but how did its whole body look? How did its skull look?
Ethiopia is also home to several crucial paleoanthropological discoveries, including the remains of Lucy and Ardi, early hominins, thought to be humanity's oldest known ancestors.
And that concludes our programme. Thank you for joining us here on Eye on Africa. Stay tuned to France 24.